That would have been.
Okay, good morning, everyone. We're here. Welcome back to day 2. Last one today is a little less electrifying than yesterday.
We already had the fire alarms.
We did a fire alarm test. Quarter to 9 this morning, so we know what happens if there's a real fire. I'm not going to make any jokes about evacuation or emergency exits or anything today. We're gonna get right into it. We are live streaming again. For thousands of people who are joining us on YouTube. But I did want to give you a brief data point. So yesterday when we were streaming, we had 80 to 90 people online during the course of the video, but at any one time, the maximum we had was 47. So not bad. But when I went to check again last night, we already had nearly 200 views of the video. So, good that was the CBET 37. So we'll see, hopefully today will go just as smoothly as yesterday did. I can't imagine any problems. Wanted to point out a couple of things. We do have, so there's some flyers around for those of you that aren't familiar. Map the Gaps. It's an organization that's a registered nonprofit in the United States. Was formed after the X-Prize competition with members of the Gentle on the X-Prize team, and to help promote discovery, diversity, empowering others to do ocean mapping and ocean discovery. It's a volunteer-based organization, and some of us spend probably way too much time on it, but it's still growing. We've got some flyers around just to give you a little more awareness about it. There's some t-shirts back there if you're interested. We've hired a fundraising consultant to try and help us grow the organization. But in the last few years, we've been very successful at putting mapping specialists, I think, sonar operators, data processors. We've done a number of different projects, and we've passed nearly $350,000 back to mostly the alumni community to support these mapping missions. They take those dollars and they bring them back to their communities, their local economies. They grow their own professional skills, their personal networks, and it's a pretty successful model. We're very happy with it. So just want to make you aware that Tomer Kenner is going to talk more about that today. Roxy Wigley is going to talk about how some of the JetBlue alumni are involved in that program. Like I said, we've got t-shirts back there. We're not really selling them, so if you're interested in t-shirts, just let me know. If you wanted a water bottle, I think I figured out the payment method. You don't need to live in Colombia or the United States to buy one, so just let me sort that out. I think we'll just do it through the Eventbrite. I think we can still do that. Anyway, I'll keep you posted on that. We've got several water bottles left. If you're attending the guiding committee meeting next week, and you'd like to purchase one, then let me know, because I've got like 25 more of those stuff. So we've got lots of water bottles. I think we'll get started. We've got Ken Chilkers up first from TerraDepth. The other announcement I want to make, if you check on Sched, we were able to reschedule yesterday's canceled session. We uncanceled it, and it's now back on this afternoon. We only lost one speaker, so not too bad. Everyone else has been very accommodating, so that's going to be later this afternoon, 3 p.m. for the uncanceled session. Everyone else today is going to be on Zoom or in person, and I think we're pretty much ready to go. I have a question, Helen, about lunch. Will it be here?
Yes.
Yes, lunch will be here. Oh, that's good. I don't remember how much time we allocated for lunch in the schedule, but I think we allocated plenty of time for lunch because I wasn't sure if it was going to be outside or not. So we should be wrapping up around 4:30 today, just as an FYI on that. But otherwise, Sched is updated with the latest agenda. We've had a few changes from yesterday. Well, it was in Sched yesterday, but I think we're back rolling. So welcome everyone. We've got a slightly smaller audience today. Just for those of you who are online, there's only 700 or 800 people in the room today. Down from yesterday, we lost some of the class. So Ken, I'll invite you up to start. Your slides are on roll.
Just knowing stuff. I have to listen.
Thanks, Tim. Just cheers to the Map the Gaps team for getting us through yesterday, all the way through last night. It was great. Good dinner, good beer, had a great time. So, here we go. I am Ken Childress. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer for CareDev. The company is just over 4 years old. Joe is our CEO. Joe is our ED manager. And been with the company, since its inception, very first early days. So just to give you a little bit here on who we are, we're really a complete, what we call Ocean Data as a Service company. And that includes the operation of autonomous vessels. Give you just a little bit on that in a minute. We have a fleet. We've chosen to work with Teledyne on their Davia systems, and we specialize in AUV surveying down to 1,000 meters. So that's our survey bailiwick, if you will. We provide that as a service, so we collect the data, we process the data, we deliver the data, and then we run the data into our digital portal that we refer to as Absolute Ocean, which is going to be the focus of my presentation here today, will be Absolute Ocean. It's a geospatial data platform, but it's a little bit different from many of the platforms that many of you have worked with before. I think by a show of hands, and I'll actually ask for one, how many of you deal with typically, bathymetric hydrographic data on a daily basis? And the other half of you see it probably on a daily basis, or have some kind of stake in the generation and use of that kind of data, or you would be here. So next slide, please. Go ahead, clicker. Okay, so this is a little bit of a commercial. We are legitimate surveyors. We do have a lot of kit. We do perform side scan, multi-beam, sub-bottom profile, magnetometers, as well as visual survey services. And then, as I said, we roll that all up. We do our own processing if the customer wants us to. So really, it's kind of an approach where we will go a la carte. If the customer wants us to just collect and deliver raw data, we will collect and deliver raw data. Customer wants us to collect and process, we'll collect and process. If they want it delivered via AO or any other platform, we'll go all the way through and provide deliverable. So we have a growing fleet of Davia systems, as well as a growing cadre of professional operators and hydrographers to deliver the data. So we are in a position where, as I talk about Absolute Ocean is a platform that we use, that we're working to encourage our customers to use, and that we, of course, would like to extend to the greater mapping community across the world as time goes on. Just to give you a quick look at it, what it is a cloud-based, I call it a geodata management platform. And I use the term geodata because it's much more than just a keyword for bathymetric data. It's much more than just a collection point or a Dropbox kind of system for putting your data, but it's actually a platform where you can manage that data as well as visualize it and collaborate with whatever group or organization that you choose to collaborate with, whether it's just a few folks at your table or the entire world or the in between. It's a browser-based interface, so it doesn't require any download, no additional software to access the data. Everything runs over common browser platforms like Chrome, Safari, Firefox, IE, Mozilla, and operates very smoothly over any internet access, any platform. If you're running a PC, a Mac, a Linux system, doesn't really matter. If your browser runs on that system, then Absolute Ocean can be used on that system. It's an easy-to-use system. It follows typical conventions with regard to pan, tilt, zoom. And when you open up the interface, basically this is what you see. This is an open file that represents a T-Carta supply compilation grid. T-Carta is a partner of ours, and some of you may be familiar. They do satellite radioimagery as well as other types of compilation data, and they have chosen to put their data representative on Absolute Ocean and make it available to their community through Absolute Ocean, so we work with them. But the interface is really simple. There's a few tools on the left-hand side that you can see there, a zoom tool, a collective open tool, a measurement tool, an area tool, and then a surface profile tool. And you can see down in the right-hand corner what the surface profile tool looks like when it's open. And so really, it's a very simple interface. You know, we try not to overload it with too many things, because most of the things that you will need if you're professionally processing this type of data have already been made available to you in Chimera, Meter Mouse, iPad, or whatever it is that you can manipulate your data in. So why did we do it? We thought as we looked around a few years ago that there really existed a place for a general management application for ocean data. The way that most of us have typically managed ocean data in the past is akin to what I refer to as the MapQuest generation. If you remember MapQuest, where you got your map, you made a PDF, you printed it off, you took it with you, and you were on your way, and you were happy as hell because you got your map off the internet. And then Google changed our lives, and they also changed our expectations with regard to the way the data is managed. So with that in mind, we determined that Absolute Ocean, you know, should be a more manageable Google Earth-like interface that most of us now are consistently familiar with. So we based it on a platform, Cesium, which is a 2D, 3D, even 4D capable platform. And it's easy to access. It had to be something that highly trained professionals would appreciate and use, and that you could teach your 9-year-old grandson how to use in just a few minutes, which I did. So it's reaches a very broad audience in terms of availability of data, and I think right here today, that's what we're really all about, is making data available. I mean, what is the point of mapping the gaps if it isn't easily accessible? So Absolute Ocean is a tool that's driven in that direction, for one thing, as well as many other things. It's a very collaborative and intuitive interface, so that it's immersive, it's easy to understand, easy to see. You can get it as soon as you start operating it, but it also has the capability to create sophisticated collaborative workflows and allow you to manage large databases. Because typically the type of databases that we in this community deal with, or data that we deal with, is not tiny data. It's quite frequently big data. So the platform has to be able to handle, manipulate, search, and work with large amounts of data and do it frequently. The other point is that updating data, I mean, it's actually been brought in a couple of presentations yesterday about, you know, the change over time issues that we run into. We have bathymetric survey, for example, of a particular area, and then storm hits, right? Well, the world in that area just changed. But the ability to go back and measure and look at what it was, as opposed to what it is today, and track those changes over time, is, you know, a bit of work, unless you have a tool that very easily allows you to do that. Absolute Ocean is. So what were our objectives? And we state them in a number of different ways, but effectively, you know, this is what it is. It's the idea of significantly scaling access being a key word to both public and private data. And if you have private data, and many of us deal with very sensitive databases, and I know that that issue has been brought up here too, in terms of sometimes the struggle that we have with siloed data, protected data, confidential data, data that organizations and individuals consider proprietary, if you will. That's okay. They can use Absolute Ocean because we can protect that data, or public at large can get access to the data. This is a representation of some of the data sets that we've been able to pull in to Absolute Ocean from places like EMONet, TCART, as I mentioned, a partner of ours, and NOAA, just to name a few. If you look at this, down at the bottom, you see where it says 175 or 174 selected files. So it's kind of an interesting capability of Absolute Ocean, is the ability to open up really large data sets with many, many files. We have a data set in here of the MH370 stuff that we got, which has over 400 line files in it. And you actually could open all of those line files in Absolute Ocean and view the entire area at one time, and use the tool to do that. So it's very capable in and with large swaths of data. Better, faster, more sustainable user experience. It has to be accessible, it has to be quick, and again, to simplify collaboration and the management and delivery of data. So just making it easier to get to our data, to get it to who it needs to get to share with the stakeholders that need to see it, as well as to be able to augment the other tools that we use. And then ultimately, we want to inspire people to take a look at what's under the surface of the ocean. So the way you do that in this generation of data access is to make it intuitive, immersive, and easy to access. So that's the goal. So what is it not? Absolute Ocean is not a comprehensive hydrographic processing system. We do not take raw data into Absolute Ocean and process it into a finished file. Rather, we let that happen, and then finished product files are loaded in Absolute Ocean, and then we take it from there. We can store and move and allow people to collaborate, say over raw data files, but we don't actually allow them to be visualized. It has to be a product file. Talk a little more about that. It's not a raw data cleaning or corrections file, so if you're bringing your data in and expecting to be able to open that data up and do cleaning and corrections, nav changes, whatever you have to do to a data file, you're not going to do that within Absolute Ocean. You're going to do that outside of Absolute Ocean and then put the refined file back in for visualization. Of course, again, you can always look for backup files in Absolute Ocean. It's not a Keras, Chesapeake, Idaho, or QPS, although we are working with all of them because Absolute Ocean can actually become an extension of those systems for the reasons that I discussed just a second ago. So, just kind of drilling down a little bit into what Absolute Ocean is. It's a visualization tool for sure. This is a survey that we ran for a customer. This is a grid of the point cloud that we generated on the multi-beam survey, but we also did a side scan survey on this. And so we have point cloud, side scan, multiple grids that can be displayed in 2D and 3D. It can be overlaid with, for example, in this case, the NOAA chart of the area so that you can get that comparative view. And so the ability to just streamline the access to all of this type of data, those different data files can be opened and closed simply with a click of a button. They can be additive or they can be viewed by themselves. It's support for both 2D and 3D visualizations. So, if you have XYZ files, you can create a Z. Then you can view them in here in a 3D format, just like this file is. We support base maps. We use Beam as far as our general mapping and location. So the accuracy of the location of the data files as they're projected is as accurate as Beam. That's what we say about accuracy. We also, though, have the JetPro base map that we can turn on and off and actually view in 2D and 3D within the system, as well as you can see here, NOAA charts. And we're also going to be adding other layers as we go. There's also plans to add other types of data that are relative, like, for example, some ocean data. We're working on submodel profiling, those types of data sets. So we talked about multi-beam. So what you need to give Absolute Ocean is a visual file, a GeoTIFF, a LAS, KML, something that we can visualize and we'll take it from there. From a management standpoint, it's a project folder-based organization. You create a survey, you create folders, and in the folders you create files, naming conventions or whatever you want them to be. It has a pretty powerful search engine capability, so you can search for your files based on name, date, time, or any other parameters, and find them within the system. And then I'll show you a little bit how that system, how you can enter things into that system and everything. It has administratively defined credentials for access, and that's important. You can create access to data sets that only people who have credentials can get to those data sets. So, if you have a proprietary data set that you're working with and you only want your workflow team to be able to see that data while it's being worked on, those permissions can be given to those individuals, and they're the only ones who will be able to see that. There's a switch inside that allows people to turn on and off the publicly viewable data. So if you don't want to see all of these other data files or have people see it, that can be turned off. If you want people to access the publicly accessible data that's in the system, turn it on and they can see that, as well as the data files that they've been allowed to see. So it's a pretty powerful access manager. And it does rely on normal security conventions that are provided. Right now, the system primarily runs on Google Cloud. We also have an arrangement now with AWS, and we're standing up an instantiation of it on AWS. But the way the system is built is it's a containerized system that actually can be run on any cloud structure, private or public. So we can drop AO on basically anybody's private cloud, if that's what they want, government cloud, or any publicly supported cloud. We also support all types of data files. So if you build a survey, then build a folder, you can put your visualized file in there, like your GeoTIFFs and LASIs that the system will visualize up when you see. It can also upload all of the other data, stuff that you've collected in PDFs, TIFFs, JPEGs, docs, XLS files, whatever those files are, they can be managed within the survey. So now you can actually get to the point where you're creating a complete deliverable of a survey project that can be given to a customer, a client, a stakeholder. Access can be granted to them, and you don't have to send them anything. They can just log on to Absolute Ocean, and their entire project is available to them when they want to see it. We do have an agreement with CBED 2030. We've heard a lot of discussion about crowdsourced data over time. We're real fans of crowdsourced data. We're also working with some other folks up in the Great Lakes area, a company called Orange Force, which does crowdsourced data delivery for NOAA in the Great Lakes area. And so we're getting more involved in that. But this is, this is a simple file. I mean, it's one line, right? From South America to Antarctica. The red in between was, I guess, too deep for the sensor to respond to. But the fact of the matter is, we can't find any other bathymetry in this area. So the importance of this, I think this visualization should hit home to a lot of us that there are vast areas of the world, where even this is important bathymetry, right? It seems simple, but what we want to do is encourage people to use the power of Absolute Ocean, to use the capabilities I've talked about, projects, put your files together, manage those projects, create work groups, collaborate, share the projects, have it easy for people to be able to use your data. We work hard on creating this data, and I've seen some great examples yesterday of hard work. I mean, the volcano was fantastic. That's great. And you also need to be able to maintain quality control. The nice thing about Absolute Ocean is you can be running a project, and if processors have access to the internet, they can cut GeoTIFF files, for example, as they're processing, and they can be uploaded to Absolute Ocean and viewed by an entire work group for quick QA, and then we continue to gather more data, and the subsequent files can be added and viewed and added and viewed. You get it, right? And then just periodically update the new data so new data becomes available, and new data becomes available all the time. You see changes over time, as well as different perspectives, from different surveys. So just really quickly, I'm going to finish up with this. How to organize users and groups is pretty easy, and I'm right over the top. So basically, when you open it up on the left-hand side there, you see there's circled the users and groups. So you can open users and then add users. If I'm going to add a user, for example, I'm going to add Tim to my user group. I can simply put him in here as a user. I can add him, and I can give him a name, and I can give him a nickname, and I can give him an experience. He's a user, he's an admin, he's a viewer. I have control over that as an administrator, and then I save it, and Tim gets an email. And the email he opens, and it says, we're inviting you to join Absolute Ocean. Here's your credential, here's a temporary password. Please change your password the first time you use it, or you're going to lose it. And that allows him then to be put into a group, and inside that group, as you can see the groups on the bottom right, then he knows what group he belongs to and what data is available to that group then becomes available to him. And he can be added to other groups